I almost said no to this one. I had just finished reviewing the T38 Plus, one of the better portable grinders I've tested recently, and I wasn't exactly looking for another portable grinder. Battery-powered grinders and light roast espresso don't always get along well. Sometimes the lower torque is not sufficient and the grinder stalls. I know this. But then I did my research and I saw something really interesting. Outer rotor brushless motor. That got my attention. Codale isn't a brand most people know. If you do know them, it's probably from their pullover, premium quality, beautiful design, something I would genuinely like to test one day. They're not newcomers to well-made coffee products, but this is their first electric grinder and it arrived as a serious contender. The build quality shows that immediately. Almost entirely metal. There are some plastic parts inside, like in the lid and at the bean inlet, but what you hold in your hand feels solid and well weighted. The 38mm heptagonal burrs look very similar to what I have in my Kingrinder P2. They're not interchangeable because Codale uses a screw system instead of a winglet. It has a cleaner design, but it closes off the option of testing different burrs for different flavor profiles. For most people, that's not gonna matter. The external adjustment ring is clear and easy to read. 60 clicks from Turkish to French press and even cold brew. External adjustment is something I consider mandatory in any grinder at this point, and Codale got that right. But the build quality isn't the reason I decided to test it. The motor is. Let me explain what outer rotor actually means, because it's more interesting than a drone reference. Imagine you're trying to open a really heavy door. If you push the door right next to the hinge, the part attached to the wall, it barely moves. It's super hard. But if you push at the far edge of the door, it swings open easily. Same push, way more effect. Motors work the same way. The spinning force comes from magnets pulling on coils. In a normal motor, those magnets are close to the center, like pushing near the hinge. In the Codale motor, the magnets are on the outside, spinning around the edge, like pushing at the far end of the door. Same electricity in, more spinning force out. Codale claims 100 watts. And I'll be honest, I don't know how exactly they calculated that number. Motor power can be framed in different ways depending on what you're measuring. But the physics checks out. Outer rotor motors do generate more torque per unit of volume. That's why they show up in drones and in direct drive applications where you need power density. For coffee grinding, torque is what breaks the inertia and starts spinning the burrs, even when you are at a very fine setting with a dense, light roasted bean. That's the specific claim I wanted to test, and I was not going easy on it. I set the grinder to click 1, as fine as it goes, and dumped 18 grams of light roasted coffee. I let it run for 1 minute and 41 seconds continuously. I wanted to see two things: whether the motor would start at all and whether it would overheat and trigger thermal protection. It didn't stop. I could feel it getting warm, but it kept running. For a battery-powered grinder at the Turkish grind setting, that's a meaningful result. In normal use, it grinds 18 grams for espresso in 49 seconds at click 10 and 10 grams for V60 in 23 seconds at click 35. Noise came in at 71 decibels grinding for espresso. It's quieter than my DF64 that hits 86 and quieter than the T38 Plus that hits 78. For a grinder claiming this much power, that's a good sign. Retention is effectively zero, less than 0.1 grams. I didn't even bother measuring because there wasn't enough to measure, and that puts it in hand grinder territory, which is exactly where you want a portable to be. So the motor delivers, but there are other decisions I want to talk through. There's an internal LED light in the hopper lid. It can be useful if you need to grind coffee while camping at night or during a power outage. But I'll be transparent. If I'm in the dark, in the middle of a power outage, coffee is not my highest priority. And my wife would probably make me save the batteries and use it as a power bank for our mobiles. Well, only if she knew that this USB-C port works in both directions. And Codale actually highlights this as a feature, charging a phone from the grinder's battery. Whether the light and working as a power bank are actually useful, I think it's good to know I have these options, but I probably wouldn't benefit from them. Codale also makes a stand designed for home use. It includes a plasma generator to reduce static, and it works. Keeps the grounds fluffy, well collected, no mess. However, it doesn't reduce retention by static inside the grinder itself. At least I couldn't see a major difference. But retention is already very low, so not a big issue. The grinder is $159 on Kickstarter, $229 at retail, and the stand is $50 on Kickstarter, $70 at retail. That's a third of the grinder's cost for what I consider a nice to have with limited benefits. If you want the coffee corner to look beautiful, I understand the appeal, but as a functional investment, I would think twice. A second comment, the stand is built around the idea of using this grinder at home, but the batteries are not replaceable. With daily home using, you're cycling those cells constantly and batteries degrade. That's just physics. Even if you use this mostly for travel, I would be surprised if it performs well past 4 or 5 years. At that point, you're either opening it yourself or retiring a grinder that's otherwise in perfect shape. So for home use, if the space is a limitation, I would choose a compact corded one like the T38 Plus. But there's good news too. If you're running out of battery and have a power bank or access to electricity, you can plug in a USB-C cable and grind while charging. The residual charge and a 10-watt charger allowed me to keep grinding when I ran out. My Auto Infino doesn't allow you to do that. It has a safety mechanism preventing that, and I don't know if I should be concerned, but I ground at least 5 of those more with my Codale, plug it to a USB-C charger, and as you can see, it didn't explode. That doesn't mean yours won't either, but I asked Codale, and it was designed to work like that, so it should be fine. Disassembling for cleaning and adjusting the zero is simple. Use a coin or a spoon to unscrew the bolt, and the burr comes out. Just 2 things to do before you start. First, mark the position of the arrow on the adjustment ring. When you reassemble, after tightening the screw, you need to back it off 180 degrees. That arrow is your calibration reference. Second, set the dial to 0 before screwing the burr back in. The grinder locks at both clicks 0 and 60. That's a thoughtful detail. It prevents you from accidentally damaging the burrs. But if you're at any other position, when you reassemble, your 0 moves. Now, 2 things that I would change. The power button is on the top lid. When you turn the grinder upside down to disassemble, you can trigger the motor. I don't think anyone is in serious danger, but it doesn't feel safe. And it's easy to fix, just move the button to the side. The second change I would make is allowing the grinder to run with the lid open. Right now you can't, and then you can't hot start this grinder. And that's my preference with any grinder, starting with the motor already running. It puts far less strain on it. But as it is now, the lid must be closed to grind, and it goes against another good practice with any electric grinder, that is, turning on before adjusting to a finer grind setting. This avoids misaligning the burrs or damaging the axle and bearings. So you can't do that here, and you can't also slow feed. In terms of flexibility, 60 clicks are more than enough to grind from Turkish to French press and even cold brew. However, in my tests, the clicks weren't precise enough for espresso by my standards. At click 10, I pulled 45 grams in 30 seconds. At click 11, it took 23 seconds. And at click 12, 16 seconds. 7 seconds per click is barely workable for espresso, again, in my opinion. As a workaround, you can add or reduce the dose by 0.5 or 1 gram, but to be fair, I didn't have time to season the burrs, so the results may shift in a few months. On flavor, taste comparisons are subjective, but I tested it against my K6 at similar extraction times, and for espresso, both were extracted at exactly 25 seconds. The Codale had more clarity but less body. The K6 was more complex with more body, and I preferred the K6 for espresso. For B60, there was a difference in extraction time, only 5 seconds, and temperature was the same. I always equalize the temperature in head-to-head tests, both for espresso and pour-over, because it has real impact on taste perception. And in this case, Codale had more clarity, more fruity, slightly better than the K6 to my taste. So, compared to the K6, the Codale delivers a bit more clarity and acidity. This review came together faster than usual. I wanted to get it out while the Kickstarter is still live, because I think the information is useful for that decision, but that also means there are details I may have missed that I would normally catch over 1 to 2 months of testing. If something wasn't covered, put it in the comments and I'll answer to the best of my knowledge. But here's where I land. The motor claim is real. The outer rotor design delivers more torque, the stress test confirmed it holds, and the grind quality is good, leaning more towards clarity than my Kingrinder K6. The build is excellent, retention is essentially zero, and at $159 on Kickstarter, if portability matters to you, I think that's fair. At $229 retail, things get more complicated. Not because the grinder isn't good, it is, but the T38 Plus at $120 exists. If portability isn't a requirement and you mainly want something compact for the counter, check my review of the T38 Plus. Regarding the stand, it works. The plasma generator helps reduce the static and the mess, but at $50 on Kickstarter to $70 retail, about a third of the grinder's price, I don't think it's worth it, unless aesthetics are your priority. Anyway, that's the Codale. There's another portable grinder coming soon, and I'm testing scales, puck preparation tools, and espresso machine. Let me know in the comments what you're most curious about, and subscribe for honest value focused reviews and tips on how to get a better cup for your taste. Thanks for watching and ciao!